2022 at 9 a.m. Join us.
NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative, and interactive on national issues accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us.
Did you get to see the way Caleb about the post this? Don't forget to send in your messages.
There's a difference between picking, child, and issue.
That's actually cool. The idea that is the can do more with less people.
If we have a better way of addressing these issues, taking care of...
Congratulations, you were able to sign Tino Werner from RB Leipzig.
So you take water before your workout.
People have used that phone, you need to TikTok to do that.
Like a protection.
A lot of people don't even have resources.
Camp Cecil.
Vice President Oshibajo directs MDAs involved in implementing National Action Plan on ease of doing business to intensify efforts.
STI Television hits the airwaves. 2022 Science, Technology, and Innovation Expo opens in Abuja.
More power supply. Federal government holds emergency meeting of industry players.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we continue our conversation on the Ukraine-Russian war implications for
Now, the Ukraine-Russia war has continued to generate discourse among nations and diplomatic circles across the globe.
Now, apart from the colossal damage on the nations directly affected, the war is also adversely causing some consequences for other nations, either directly or indirectly, one way or the other, especially arising from the sanctions imposed on the invaders of Ukraine.
As no one knows when the war will end for now, nations are taking necessary measures to mitigate the effects of the war in their various countries, both economically and otherwise.
Now, this concern was the reason for Good Morning Nigeria to begin a conversation on the issue, to have a critical look at the situation, particularly as it affects the Nigerian economy. And those implications will include oil and gas, as well as food security.
The guests said that when there is uncertainty of this nature, people tend to hold commodities that they have comparative advantage on.
Now, the guests also said that the world is already in the middle of a disruption of supply chain, and that the situation might get worse if the current conflict does not abate.
The experts were of the view that this is a good opportunity for Nigeria to improve her economy, but the nation is not properly positioned to cash in on this, as there is no serious investment on export of agri-production or agri-produce, even though Nigeria has the capacity to do so.
Now, they also advocated for the setting up of a task force to identify critical commodities that are likely to be in short supply in the world, and that those commodities, if Nigeria has a comparative advantage, should focus on them.
While alluding to the fact that there is going to be increase in prices of energy and food, the guests emphasized the need for institutional engagement to ameliorate the likely hardship arising from this unfortunate development.
So, what further steps should Nigeria take to sustain her food security? And should there be a think tank that is needed at this time to provide an urgent blueprint to deal with the emerging developments in all aspects of our economy, especially now that the prices of certain commodities are increasing, such as bread and confectionaries? And we have also seen the rise in global prices of oil, and we are heavily dependent on imported refined products. So what do we need to do to ramp up our agricultural production, especially on some of those commodities that we rely on by way of importation? Now, what else can we do also to produce those agricultural conversation on the Ukraine-Russian war and its implications for the Nigerian economy? Welcome to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kieran Umay, also welcoming you to today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. As usual, we'll serve you our companion segments in the course of the program. For now, Frama Pines is here with the morning news highlights. Good morning, Frama.
Good morning, Kingsley, and good morning, Kieran. Here is the morning news. Ministries, departments, and agencies involved in the implementation of the National Action Plans have been advised to intensify efforts in the execution of the plans aimed at creating a better business environment. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo gave the advice when the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, which he chairs, received the midway report on National Plan Action 7.0. Beyond core regulatory roles, government agencies must always show that they are responsible to the people that they serve and that they hold them in high esteem. This is the view of Vice President Yemi Osinbajo when he received a delegation of the West African Examinations Council, WAEC, in town for the Council's 70th annual meeting. Nigeria's Science, Technology and Innovation Television has now officially hit the airwaves. This is coming as the 2022 edition of the Science, Technology and Innovation Expo opens in Abuja.
The above two projects commissioned today are aimed at job and wealth creation, as well as increase the number of our youths and women that will be attracted to science, technology, and innovation activities.
What we're telling the younger ones is how to catch them young and make sure that they are part of this. The television is only serving as a bedrock through which a lot of people will be informed and also be co-opted to be part of this development.
Meanwhile, federal government has engaged industry players in the power sector to find solution to the current nationwide epileptic electricity supply caused by poor gas supply and technical challenges in some generating plants. A statement by the Minister of Power, Abubakar Aliyu, says the high-level engagement includes representatives of generation companies, Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading, PLC, NBET, Niger Delta Power Holding Company, as well as NNPC and Shell, among others. The federal government reassures electricity consumers that resolutions reached will ultimately translate to improved power supply. 36 states' attorneys general are to take decisive measures to protect the laws from undue interference and abuse by those exercising authority. This was at a maiden engagement of the body of attorneys general by the legal department of the Nigeria Governors Forum. The Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has fixed 28th of March to rule on the bail application filed by the suspended DCP Abakari and 4 others. Now, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, has flagged off the Nexit CBN Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme for the exited NPOWER beneficiaries of batches A and B. Out of the 183 trainees who indicated interest, 75,600 will participate in the first phase of the orientation program.
It's long-awaited training that will enable these beneficiaries that indicated interest to participate into the CBN Empowerment Program. It is my honor and pleasure to flag out the first batch of the next CBN Administrative Program.
More about agriculture so that I can do more in my agricultural business.
This has been in the history of Nigeria the government that will recruit the largest number of unemployed graduates in the country.
That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kieran and Kingsley after this break.
Ajaye go gym. You won't go shake your body. Instead, they make it calm down. If the pump says Dabi, you want to grow 6 packs in a day. I beg you not to pass your power. You want to show yourself.
Whatever your size, find it with the new Airtel data plans. Dial *141# now to get the plan that suits you. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Arise, O Nigerians! Let's applaud the courage of Flight Lieutenant Abayomi Dairo, aka the Aggressor, for his skillful and dogged escape from the bloodthirsty bandits in the forest of Zamfara State. 3 hearty cheers also to all military and security personnel who are tirelessly protecting fellow Nigerians from insurgency and banditry while maintaining peace and order. Nigerians are proud of Abayomi Dairo and all our gallant men and women in uniform for sacrificing so much to keep us safe. We admire your courage and we say thank you. God bless the armed forces. God bless Nigeria. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
My son has always dreamt of being in the spotlight. That's why I give him Born Vita for everyday vitality that gives him the strength to pursue his dreams. Born Vita, strength to dream.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
All right, now let's turn to business. Federal Competition Consumer Protection Commission, in conjunction with the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, the Central Bank of Nigeria, and some other relevant agencies are in the process of clamping down on some loan application platforms over consumer rights abuse. Details of this with Alika Obanachi Arwa.
The Executive Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Federal Competition Consumer Protection Commission, Mr. Babatunde Irukera, said the growing number of consumer complaints on the activities of loan application platforms in relation to privacy infringements and high interest rates informed FCCPC's decision to carry out the raid. He said a situation where loan application platforms send names and pictures of loan defaulters to all their telephone contacts without recourse to due process and in a manner that suggests naming and shaming will no longer be tolerated. He lamented that majority of the companies are operating illegally and not registered by the Corporate Affairs Commission and the Central Bank of Nigeria to carry out the businesses of financial transactions in the country. Irukera said that the agency has been monitoring the activities of firms for several months, saying in the event that any of these businesses continue in any of these conducts or the Commission receives credible evidence of such, violators will be subjected to the full extent of the law, including prosecution without option of administrative regulatory resolution. And taking a look at Monday tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, Alika Obanachi Arwa.
Thank you very much, Alika, for the business news on Good Morning Nigeria. Up next is newspaper review.
All right, and we have Bayote here on Super Reviewer, who is back, and you're welcome.
Thank you, Kiria. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, good to see you. Okay, let's begin by taking a look at the window page of the Punch newspaper. And that page, of course, is pretty busy with a number of headlines. Above the name flag, where we're starting from, it says FG may spend 93% of revenue on interest in 2022, says IMF. FG may spend 93% of revenue on interest in 2022, says IMF. Reps and NNPC intervene as flight cancellations leave passengers stranded. Wike and Obaseki continue verbal war. Governors allege betrayal and unguarded comments. 2 earpieces beside the name flag. ASU extends strike to May. Parents beg. Federal government says demands met. Nigeria reports 1,060 polio cases. Variant hits 29 states and FCT. In this story, it's on what we experienced in the Federal Capital Territory yesterday and elsewhere around the country. Blackout as national grid collapses. Federal government summons emergency meeting. Discos alert power consumers as 19 power plants record zero output. FG, TCN, GENCOs, NNPC, oil firms, others hold marathon session. Major firms, public institutions suspend services as blackout lingers. And the confusion as Kiari's wife slumps in court, suspended DCP remanded. These are the photographs from the scenes by the Federal High Court in Abuja yesterday. 2 Chadians, 557 repentant terrorists graduate from Gombe camp. JAM fingers elite schools over fraud in group registration. Widows and others protest relatives' detention over 2014 Giwa Barracks attack. 12 days to convention. APC holds forms, governors divided. Adamawa herbalist defrauds man of 1.3 million naira, promising 500 million naira. Rumored planned police strike, fake and mischievous, going to the force headquarters. Kieran, let's take one other paper from you.
All right, now let's turn to the Nation newspaper. The Nation is above the nameplate. Abba Kyari's wife Ramatu collapses in court. So that's on page 6. Airline operators to get aviation fuel import license on page 28. While we extended strike for 2 months by ASU, also on page 28. On that same page, you find Enugu Council chiefs to Ekwaramadu, where for zoning. All right, now banks commit 15% capital to insurance bond, as well as a weaker Baseki fight dirty in a bid to control Edo PDP. All that on page 3. Now the lead story is on zoning. Anxiety in PDP over presidential ticket. With riders there, battle rages between North and South. National Caucus, BOT, NEC, meet. And on Leadership newspaper this morning, aviation fuel scarcity. We will have only 3 days to shut down operations, according to airlines. Target 120,000 for economy ticket. That's on page 7. NLC backs ASU strike as students consider vocational skills. That's on page 7. States crumbling under security, economic crisis, governors warn. With 2 riders, lament VAT, stamp duty administration, politics around Paris Club reforms, skewed federal system has eroded states' identities, as according to Akaridolu, that's on page 4. Federal government, CBN, to finance 76,600 N-Power beneficiaries, on page 27. Enugu West PDP chid Ekwaramadu over zoning denials, on page 4. All right. We also have the issue of Abba Kyari's wife slumping yesterday. It's on page 6. All right. And let's bring in Bayo now.
Thank you, Kirian. Let's start with the story about reported in most papers that the Academic Staff Union of Nigeria Universities is reported to have extended its ongoing strike up to May. This 2-month extension is causing a lot of anxieties. The Academic Staff Union says that it has within the 2 months, its expectation is that that is sufficient time for government to meet all the agreements they've had with them. Meanwhile, the National Association, president of the Parent Teacher Association of Nigeria, Danjuma Haruna, has appealed to the federal government and ASU to resolve issues so that students can go back to school. The PTA president says that additional 2-month strike will have devastating implication on the educational sector in all the 36 states of the federation. He says that not every parent in Nigeria can afford to take their children abroad or take them to private universities. They say the PTA is begging the federal government and ASU to go back to dialogue for the sake of the students and the academics in the nation. Meanwhile, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited plans to grant license to airline operators the association as a means of importing aviation fuel. The group managing director of the NNPC, Mr. Mele Kyari, disclosed this at an investigative hearing at the House of Representatives yesterday. The meeting resolved to fix the price of aviation fuel at 500 naira per litre instead of the 670. In fact, some papers reported 720 2 days ago. The representatives of the Depot Petroleum Marketers Association, DAPMAN, as well as MOMA, Major Marketers Association, are expected to meet in 3 days and to agree on transparent basis for pricing. This is said it will be based on a transparent reference benchmark for the marketers. Meanwhile, the report we had yesterday about a dispatch rider who was apprehended on the suspicion of having stolen the child is said to have had the mother's consent. The police, after investigation, found that the rider is a neighbor to the baby and the mother. And actually, the baby was fond of the rider. The rider was to pick up something in the neighborhood, but the child cried uncontrollably. And so the mother said, okay, go with uncle. However, the mob, on hearing the baby cry, apprehended the rider, thinking that the baby was stolen. The police investigation has shown that, one, the baby was not stolen. Secondly, the child was not in the courier box as alleged by the mob. Lagos State Police spokesman Adekunle Aje Sebutu says that the video on social media alleging that the dispatch rider has stolen the baby and placed the baby in the courier box were all false. So we need to take...
I raised that issue yesterday.
Yes, that was why I was need to clear it.
That's right. And I also read the stories yesterday when the police spokesperson issued the statement. But I think that there are more questions than answers that have been provided. That baby is said to be 10 months old. That's one account I read, unless the baby is 10 years old. If a baby is 10 months old, as in the account, that baby is not walking just yet.
No.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, where is the father of that baby? The baby is fond of the dispatch rider, according to the accounts. So the mom of the baby says, look, okay, go with the dispatch rider. How did the dispatch rider carry that baby? He was riding the motorcycle.
Yes.
So
there's a box at the back.
There's a box at the back. So you will have the baby somewhere in your solar plexus, and then you have one hand on the on your motorcycle. In the first instance, how are you going to manipulate your way if you are riding a motorcycle?
And also carrying a baby.
And carrying a baby. Your they have handlebars. You're supposed to have your two hands on it. It is indeed a traffic offense.
Yes.
But it's for you. Just a minute, Kirian. It is indeed a traffic offense for you to have done that. In the first instance, where were you carrying the baby to? He said, oh, around the neighborhood. Around the neighborhood became an expressway.
Well, nevertheless, the point is clear. The baby was not stolen.
That is it.
That is
the crux of the matter. That's why I asked the question. Where is the father of that baby? The police have said there. I would suggest, for instance, that NAPTIP should make further investigation. Where were you taking a 10-month-old baby to? A 10-month-old baby is not walking. And then you put a 10-month-old baby in a motorcycle. Where do you put the baby?
2023. You recall that a governor referred to his colleagues of the All Progressive Congress as Yahoo governors. Yahoo in our parlance here refers to internet fraudsters. It is not dignifying for a compatriot governor to refer to his brother governors as Yahoo governor. Similarly, last week, in the heat of disagreement over the situation in Edo State, the People Democratic Party, the deputy governor made pronouncement, and another governor referred to him as a mere deputy governor, adding and asking who is his father. Another governor responded by describing another governor as a bully. And yesterday, there was another rebuttal describing another governor as a serial betrayal. These are comments that are not dignifying. And unless caution is is emphasized, it's
already appeared on the regular media showing that they actually happened. So that is what we get in the political space in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, it has to do with discipline, personal discipline. That's just what it is. And as you pointed out, that goes to show that in 2023, when we have elections, I'm not going to wish us any bad omen. But again, from what is trending at the moment, it goes to point to the fact that we still have to find a way to deal with that election of 2023.
Well, I believe in that subject. I'd go into another one. In basic economics, what we refer to as division of labor. That way, each person specializes, and then at the end of the day, the productivity
is enhanced.
Is enhanced. I'm just wondering why it will now be the business of airlines to be importing their own aviation fuel. Is that the business of airlines in the first instance? It refers to the dysfunctionalities that we're having in the system. And some of these things ought to be streamlined. There was a time some years ago, we also had disruptions in the supply of aviation fuel and flight cancellations and all kinds of things. Now they have only 3 days, according to them, before they run out of aviation fuel. It is not just only for domestic airlines, but also for international airlines that fly into the country, because when they fly in, they have to refuel. So how then do you fly in and you are unable to refuel? If you are unable to refuel, it means that you are grounded. So why are we having these issues? It's also related to the blackout that we are experiencing with the collapse of the national grid.
Yes.
They say that 19 power plants record zero at 19. How can it happen? And happily, the Minister of Power summoned an emergency meeting yesterday to find out and then to resolve all of this crisis. At some point, they will complain about inadequate supply of gas. Gas is produced in Nigeria. We are not importing the gas. At some other point, they were quarreling over gas pricing and who is owing, who is not owing. And bet is supposed to be in the middle of all this, and the Gencos are not producing. They say they are having maintenance. Everything happening at the same time. I mean, it's unhealthy for the economy.
It is very unhealthy for the economy, and sometimes one begins to read meanings into all this, as if they are all deliberately guarded to deliberately grind the nation. I don't understand. Precisely. It's curious. For the past almost 5 days now, we have not had power in my location. I thought it was unique to our area, only to hear that the whole national grid got collapsed.
Precisely.
Well, it's all about planning and the execution of laid down policies. Of course, over the years, we have experts have also opined that for us to have a national grid, one grid serving the entire nation, is wrong. One doesn't need to go to school to understand that fact from the beginning. I wonder why the successive administrations had not thought it wise to see what we can do to decentralize power supply in Nigeria. For us to be sourcing power from one place is very dangerous. If anything happens to the grid, we're on blackout. And as you said, it doesn't all go well for the economy. And until something is done about it, we'll continue to tell this story or discuss it on Good Morning Nigeria and perhaps other programs and all of that. And we'll still revolve around the same issue.
Gas is not the only means by which we generate power in Nigeria. There are hydro dams. What is happening for the hydro sources of power?
But everything goes to the grid, the national grid. That's it. Everything.
So if there's the issue, the TCN, that is the Transmission Company of Nigeria, issued a statement to say that the fault wasn't theirs, that it is the amount of power that they get that they're able to wheel through the grid, and that they're not getting enough supplies from the generating companies. Some of the generating companies said they're having maintenance, and another time there were low water level. In the past, if you recall, when we had NEPA, they used to say, "Oh, there was a snake in the turbine that ensured that it didn't work." That was in Kenji. You also have Shiroro, and as I said, it's good news that the Minister of Power has stepped into this. And let whatever clogs there are, let these clogs be cleared. And
yes.
Let the nation have power. If you are generating assuming you are generating 3,000, we know that it's 3,000 megawatts you are generating, and then give that out to consumer at a time when the power tariff has been increased. I'm sure you have all noticed that.
Yeah,
if you buy power, that's right.
Some people may have been benefiting from the current situation. That's what some people are also, saying, because in this country, when you have such mishap, there may be some individuals or organizations that are also making their money, while the rest of us suffer.
Share subterfuge.
All right. Bayo, it's on that note, would like to appreciate
Thank
you
you
for having been around today. Thanks a lot, and then we'll see you again tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be another day, God willing.
Okay. It's Good Morning Nigeria, and we're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, broadcasting from our Abuja headquarters studios. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll get into our conversation, again, looking at the implications of the Ukraine-Russian war for the Nigerian economy.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportation. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
Well, the housing solution we have developed is a multifaceted one. First, we have tried to lead a program to build what we think will be an acceptable and hopefully affordable housing based on surveys we did in 2015-2016 and construction that started in 2017. And that's going on in 24 states at the National Housing Program.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The counsel of our fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it, run away from it.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
We thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria up to this moment. Now, to begin our conversation, let's take these excerpts from our earlier discussion on the subject matter put together by Joseph Oseng.
Russia supplies 40% of Europe's gas, right? And what happens with the pipelines that they have, etc., and the sanctions create uncertainty about supplies. So obviously, when there is uncertainty, people begin to move either to hoard the commodity, or people who would like to trade in it begin to take positions, etc. So that is one. The implication of a higher price is simply a function of this fear, uncertainty, etc.
They have shut down Russian, market as far as using of Visa, Master, and those other cards are concerned. In Nigeria here, all of us, I'm sure all of us as panelists here, including you, the anchors, are using either Visa card or MasterCards or Diners or American Express. Where is InterSwitch? Where are our local payment mechanism system that we need to possibly popularize and somehow ring-fence ourselves in the event that the issues get to unbearable situation?
But agriculture, what's Russia's position? What is Nigeria's opportunity? Nigeria is reputed to import about 5 million tons of wheat per annum. Does Nigeria have the climate for wheat production? I will say a very big yes. But when things like this happen, there is usually a strategic move to take advantage of it. And so you can still pursue your food security, but invest very heavily now on export-oriented agricultural production.
How do we increase our capacity to produce for local supply and, of course, reduce price going forward? Because that's going to be the most important thing. Bread is a major staple. It's ate by, without reference to any empirical study, it's held by more than 80% of Nigerians on a daily basis. So if the price of wheat goes up, it's going to impact down the line. So I think we should start looking at that. Prices are gone up by more than 40%.
All right. Now, those were excerpts from the first part of our conversation on this topic yesterday, Monday. Today, we have also a new set of guests. Some of them, but if not most of them, are regulars on Good Morning Nigeria. Dr. Emeka Okengo, development economist and also an agric practitioner. Dr. Okengo, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Pleasure, sir. Good morning, fellow Nigerians.
Also here with us is architect Kabir Ibrahim, president of Farmers Association of Nigeria. Architect Kabir, delight to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay.
And from our Kano studio is Alhaji Abubakar Alpha, Managing Director of Market Bridge Limited, Kano. Good morning and welcome.
And thank you for having me.
From Damaturu, we are being joined by Professor Abba Gambo, Dean, Faculty of Agriculture, Yobe State University. So it's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, Professor Gambo, delight to have you. My colleague Kieran was the one that introduced you, but regardless, we have the pleasure of having all guests with us this morning. Let's just begin by taking your comments on what is playing out in Ukraine on account of the invasion by Russia. And yesterday, of course, we looked at the broad economic implications for the rest of the world, particularly for us in Nigeria. We also took a look at the energy implications and touched briefly on food security for Nigeria. Food security is particularly critical against the background of what we already see as reactions from a number of countries. Egypt, for instance, which imports heavily its wheat requirements from Ukraine, Russia, it's seeking the alternatives. Algeria has already banned the export of some of its own commodities. Algeria heavily relies also on importation. So, beginning with Dr. Emeka Okengo, what is it that the world should watch out for, and in this case, in Nigeria, in terms of the agricultural implication of the war and sanctions that have followed?
Thank you very much. Let me not focus on the world. Let's look at our home. What should we be scared of? I think some new reality has dawned on us that for the past 10 years or more, we've not done any development planning. That's the reality on ground today. That what we've done is that we've played politics with development. And then in building infrastructure, one of the things we list is that we've been able to build silos that can be able to take 1.2 million metric tons of grains, and they're all empty. And nobody has bothered, okay, why they're empty. And nobody has even bothered, why did you build them in the first place? And then why do you need to build silos? Do you build them as storage tanks or do you build them as strategic reserves? So the first failure of what is happening today is that every other part of the world, you've listed Algeria, you've talked about Egypt, these are developing economies. Saw yesterday, saw tomorrow. Just like China, 20 years ago, started building the biggest storage tanks for petroleum products because they saw tomorrow. So I think what this it's brought some realities that there are some people we need to start calling out in Nigeria. So it's not about having a conversation now. And for me, if you permit me, the first person we should be calling out now is our national planning, whoever is in charge there. What have we been doing? Is this supposed to come as a surprise that people are fighting? Didn't you know that these people were depending on you? I mean, any paper you open now, somebody says to you, Russia and China and Ukraine are the two biggest producers of wheat after maybe America. Again, maize. And then somebody says, maize is staple in Nigeria. Somebody now says, Nigeria has 85 million hectares of land. Now, I will stop on this. Please, how many million hectares of land does Ukraine farm this wheat that they are supplying the world with? Not a fraction, less than 20 million hectares, as against the 85 million hectares we have in Nigeria. So instead of now looking at this thing from a global perspective, I think we should be looking at it now from the latest report of, the Food and Agriculture Organization, Kingsley Kirian, that says that 19.8 million Nigerians are going to be facing food shortages in 16 states of Nigeria. And this will shock you. Cross River, which is in the food belt, which is in the rainforest, is one of those states listed. Edo, where you come from, another state in the rainforest, in the food belt, is listed. If that doesn't give us worry, I don't know what else will.
All right, let's bring in Kabir Ibrahim, who is the president of All Farmers Association of Nigeria. As a matter of fact, we are in your domain, because the fear is that most of the food items that are imported from Russia and Ukraine, which is mainly wheat, I don't know how much of it that Nigeria imports. But the question is, with the current situation now, how prepared is the agricultural sector to ramp up activities, to ensure that Nigeria is not adversely affected when the effect of this war touches on agriculture?
Well, I'm glad to align myself with what Doctor said, in terms of serious developmental plans. We have had Vision 2020, and now we just launched the Vision 2021 to 2025, and there will be 2026 to 2030, and then Agenda 2050. It's true that we have not been able to walk our talk, but I believe that there is hope that Nigeria will attain some form of self-sufficiency. But there are many, many threats. And this, the war between Ukraine and Russia is exacerbating the situation. But what we should do in Nigeria with the vast availability of land resources is we should look inwards. We have a golden opportunity today through AFTA to invest more in the production of some of these products that affect the lives of our people, especially wheat. If you go around now, in Abuja, for instance, bread is supposed to be the commonest thing that everybody should eat. A good loaf of bread is about 700 naira in Abuja. In Katsina, where I am, I have a bakery. I have closed it. There's no way we can make bread and break even. People cannot afford it. I think this is true for everywhere else in Nigeria. It's in Abuja that people say there is money. So some people like you can still buy bread. But I can tell you, if you go around, it is a very difficult thing. Now, coming to the reality today, we must really invest heavily in agriculture. We should not just do it to be noticed. There's a lot of money now in agriculture, thanks to CBN and so many other windows that are there. But most of this money is misapplied. You know, when you do these things decisively, you target the people who will produce optimally and improve their capacity, thereby be able to feed yourself. There is no way you can rely on importation to feed your population. The mirage of what Russia and Ukraine produce in terms of wheat is, I think people don't understand it. The biggest country in wheat production is actually China. They produce 135 million metric tons, followed by India. The Russia is about 80.9 million. Ukraine is just 26 point something million metric tons. Combined together, they are not even up to India. Now, there is a war going on. There are many blockades for China. You cannot even bring anything here. But this kind of thing happened during COVID-19. You could not import or export anything. This situation will come again. Another thing can happen in the world and all that. So every country will have to look at its own possibilities. Its potential has to be harnessed. And then you have a very good population. You have very good cultivable land. You have very good irrigable land. You must work assiduously to make Nigeria an economy work. And food is the most important thing for any kind of development. If you don't do this, there is no way you can avoid the famine that doctor is talking about.
All right. Thank you very much, Architect Kabir Ibrahim. And just as well, the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, has warned of what he calls a hurricane of hunger around the world, but particularly in Africa, on account of the blockade that has been referred to, as well as disruptions in production and supplies. Professor Abba Gambo, let's bring you into the conversation at this time. Yes, we can be concerned about development plans. We can also be concerned about long-term solutions, but in the short term, it appears that the effects of the war in Ukraine just might begin to hit home. What is your reading of the situation, and therefore what can we also begin to think of doing?
All right, thank you, Kingsley, and good morning, Kirian. Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you for having me from Damaturu here. So one thing that we must all get it clear right at the beginning is there is something between food and security that should not be divided under whatever conditions. Even under peaceful scenarios, if one is touched, then automatically the other one is also affected. Food and security are never inseparable. Once the food is not there, there is an issue of security. And once there is an issue of security, it affects the food. Simple. We should have this at the back of our minds. Then the two countries that are fighting, coincidentally, the world relies so much on them for not just wheat, but then plenty of other agricultural products. And then one thing that nobody is talking about is the total number of fertilizer, most especially from Ukraine, that is coming out. Most countries rely on Ukraine for their fertilizer needs. So now the food situation is affected in so many ways. Let's take the wheat scenario, for example. 50% of global wheat comes from these two countries, And today, about 45 countries rely up to 1/3 of their wheat needs from these two countries. In Africa, we have countries like Burkina Faso, Egypt, Somalia, DR Congo, and then Libya, etc., relying on these countries. So now that the war is there, and then there is a blockage, most especially from the Turkish angle, whereby the wheat cannot flow out again. So you now find a situation whereby there is a kind of stoppage of this food. And then most of the countries I mentioned, in fact, most countries of the world, wheat is a very important thing. Let's take the scenario in Nigeria. If you don't take bread, you take noodles. If you don't take noodles, you take pasta. If you don't take pasta, at least you have to bake some cakes here and there for your birthday, wedding, etc. So we are now looking at the cumulative effect of all these things that you're talking about. There is no party that goes on without cakes and pastries and other things. So all these things are going to be affected. The most important thing to note again is also this. The FAO has already given a mandate that the price of food has never been this high for the last 40 years. So there is a red flag being flown by the Food and Agriculture Organization that all countries of the world should be proactive enough to make sure that the food situation in their respective countries are managed very well in such a way that the hunger that is already scaring virtually everybody in the eyes should be tackled, most especially in countries like Nigeria, with a population of more than 200 million, and then with huge reliance on foreign countries for virtually all the things we produce. I think Nigeria has to be very, very proactive. When the war started, I was thinking there should be a special intervention program whereby, okay, the states that are good in wheat production, most especially the northern part whereby there is the cool Hamatan, I was thinking there should be a specialized program whereby you now give them special money, please start this production of wheat, because we all saw the war coming. And then wheat is not something that takes plenty of time. The gestation period of wheat is not long enough. 3 months, you get your wheat. At least they started this war or JoJo about more than 3 months ago. So you can actually have been very proactive. And by now, the wheat will have been harvested, definitely. And then talking about the strategic reserves, most of the silos are there. But then, unfortunately, most of them are empty.
All right, Prof. As we make progress in this conversation, we'll return to you for further analysis. But now let's turn to Alhaji Abubakar Alfa, Managing Director of Market Bridge Limited, Kano. I understand it's also a flour miller. So you have listened to other guests, talk on the current situation in Ukraine and Russia and the devastating effect the war could have on agriculture, and the effect also on many nations, especially Nigeria, that relies heavily on imported food items. So what's your own take on the situation? Dr. Emeka Okengwu raised the issue of Nigeria not having development plan, in the past 10 years, to figure out, how the country can, be stable in terms of food production. What's your own take? Because you are a professional and you understand the dynamics, of what is happening globally now with respect to the Ukraine-Russia war.
My take on this is this conflict is the fallout of globalization. We now need to understand as a people that globalization has a downside. Yes, there is a high level of interconnectedness, there is a high level of interdependence among countries, but there is also something serious countries are doing about it, and Nigeria shouldn't be left out of this serious committee of nations. Our listeners will be shocked to get this insight. Apart from the fact that wheat is among the 3 food security crops in Nigeria, along with rice and maize, and apart from the fact that over 95% of the wheat being used in Nigeria is being imported and local production is nowhere near 5%. Some figures are putting it at around 1%. How does this show a serious country? Wheat is not alien in Nigeria. We've had it for a very long time. Issues of developing the production of wheat is not new in Nigeria. The question is, why have we not gotten it right, like in many other sectors? Now, if you look at what is happening, just like Dr. Emeka said, there is a very low level of commitment and accountability on our part. And I beg to say this, as of today, go and check the statistics. The biggest millers of wheat in Nigeria are non-Nigerians. So apart from the fact that we have decided to import food crops that are alien to us, we have also surrendered the milling of these products to foreigners. Check the statistics. I'm talking of well over 75% of the capacity of wheat bill mill in Nigeria is done by non-Nigerians. So where is the planning and where is the food security consciousness? There are important lessons for us as a people. One is that we cannot continue to grow our population but expect other people to feed us. It just will not work. There is also something I would like to call our attention to. What could have happened during COVID in terms of Nigerians being able to feed themselves? We've always had the mentality that if we can buy it, why produce it? Now, suppose the present administration did not take the issue of rice production as serious as they did when they came in 2015. What do you imagine could have happened to our people during the COVID-19 shutdown? Now, rice and wheat are cousins. The same way that we can grow rice in good quantities in Nigeria, like Prof said, we have the capacity to grow wheat in this country. The belt goes from Jigawa State, Kano State, up to Sokoto States. Why are the governments of these states not looking at it as an opportunity for reducing employment, empowering their farmers, creating wealth for our people, and improving the level of livelihood? All along when we talk, focus is on the federal government, federal government, federal government. Yes, there is a lot that the federal government can do. But I'll tell you, as long as everybody is looking through and toward the center, everybody's business is just nobody's business. So stakeholders along the wheat value chain need to show some level of commitment and seriousness such that others will key into it. And it all starts with, like Dr. Emeka said, development planning. We just cannot continue like this. So this is a wake-up call for the Nigerian nation.
Thank you very much, Alhaji Abubakar Alpha. I'm tempted to still stay with you. I want us to hear from you what the issues are at the moment. And there are a few facts to bear in mind. Alhaji Aliko Dangote already has called for a ban, temporary or otherwise, on the exportation of maize out of Nigeria. Master bakers in Imo State, on the basis of a combination of factors, high cost of diesel, high cost of flour, saying that their businesses are grinding to a halt. What challenges do flour millers face in the short term? What is it that you are hearing and what is it that you are seeing? How will this impact your business and ultimately the consumers of your products against the background of the shortages that the world is going to experience, if not already experiencing, from the war in Ukraine and Russia?
To call a spade by its name, I will tell you that what Alhaji suggested is in the right direction, but I'm afraid that we are a little late. Now, let's go back to COVID-19. It will shock you to understand that, and this you can verify from the Association of Master Bakers and Caterers of Nigeria, the umbrella body. More than 30%, which is 1/3 of the bakeries in Nigeria ran or were sent out of business during COVID. And the reason is not far-fetched. High cost of inputs. Is it flour? Is it additives? Is it butter? Is it sugar? Is it salt? Every price of all ingredients, in some cases, more than doubled. And bakers couldn't pass this cost to consumers. So at some point, it is difficult to keep their bakeries in operation, and they had to close. We are faced with another very similar scenario. Yes, if we stop exporting maize, that will bring some respite. Why? I grew up not with bread as a staple in my house. What I used to take was kunu, which is pap. And this is very popular across Nigeria. I know it is popular in the east. I know it is popular in the southwest. I also know it's popular in the north. We just have to look backward to alternatives that are available to us. One of these alternatives is orange flesh sweet potato. Orange flesh sweet potato is well received and well grown in Nigeria. But as of today, what we have is boil and eat. This is not the right application or the right use for orange sweet potato. Kenya, Ghana have made a lot of advancement. Even in Nigeria, there was research around 2013, 2014 that shows the good benefit of orange flavored sweet potato. And one of the recommendations by the researchers done was we should use it as a substitute to reduce our flour demand by at least 25%. A lot of money was spent on those research, but like most things in our climate, I don't think it's so the light of day. So as of today, the price of a 50 kg bag of wheat flour is selling for 21,000 naira here in Kano. I will not be surprised if the price, based on two factors, moves to or toward 30,000 before the end of this month. One, speculation, panic buying, and deliberate hoarding. Some of the millers today are not producing at capacity. They have also decided to cut down on production because of replacement costs. When the current stock of wheat is exhausted, they don't know and they are not sure if they will be able to procure wheat and at what price. So this uncertainty is also making them to take it slow. And where you cut down on production, you generate or create artificial scarcity. That artificial scarcity will now upturn the balance of demand and supply. So we all know the implications of having greater demand than supply. It will put a pressure on price, and that has already started now. To make matters worse, one of the speakers talked about fuel, which is also a consequence. We are having serious implications in terms of the war. Diesel is highly important in the flour value chain, either at production or logistic levels. How much is diesel today? A few weeks ago, it was selling for 300 plus. As of today, it's touching 700 naira per liter. So that tells you that the effect is already being felt. And my advice is we need to look inward and backward. Whatever we try to do as a short-time fix is not sustainable. We just have to be patriotic. The level of xenocentrism in Nigeria is too high. Our embrace of anything foreign It's part of what has led us to the present situation. And if we understand the cause, then we should be able to identify the solution. So part of the solution is we have to look backward, but the consequences cannot be avoided. That I can tell you.
On that note, the consequences cannot be avoided. Gentlemen, from your postulations, it does appear that if necessary action is not taken, the nation could find itself in a what I would call a food quagmire. Let me bring in Dr. Okengu once more. You talked about development plan not followed, or that in the past 10 years we have not meticulously followed the practical aspect of a development plan. This plan have always been there, but not perhaps effective because of non-performance. Now, people believe that the situation in Russia and Ukraine is an opportunity for Nigeria to ramp up activities, especially in the agricultural sector. As a development economist, what will be the approach, as it were, which Nigeria should actually embark upon to see how we can proactively, ensure that whatever adverse effect that this war will bring down to the African continent, that Nigeria, will be able to, sustain itself, especially when it comes to those food items that we import in huge quantity.
Well, like my big brother, Akitna Kabiri said, more of this will happen. So I beg to please plead with you that we don't use the Ukraine-Russian imbroglio as a basis, because that would be what you call fire brigade approach. Now, like Alaji said from Kano, everybody drinks Kunu. In fact, one of the most popular meals now you have is either you do it with rice, or you do it with maize, or you do it with whatever. But what's key is that there's one they call akama. I had said this on this program before. Akama has been a staple in northern Nigeria forever. And a lot of researches have shown that Nigeria actually has a wheat belt that can run clearly from the Borno, axis. And one of the best grown rice is actually grown in Borno State. The place that the farmers were slaughtered, the farm that Boko Haram killed people, is actually one of the best belts for grain production. Now, let me bring in China, because somebody had talked about China. China had recovered about 30% of its desert. And they are using it to now start planting both their tree crops and their food crops. And strange enough, most of these things are now beginning to export into Nigeria. In fact, somebody sent me a video 2 days ago that broke my heart. It was a video of Chinese people now putting nkwobi. They are now packaging nkwobi. Nkwobi is the offcuts of beef. They are now putting it together into packages with sauces and bringing, into the market. Why have I gone the way I've gone? There is what they call desert agriculture, which is what China is promoting. And I had gotten a friend of mine in promoting, when we were doing the climate smart agricultural project, to speak, to the ambassador of China. And he said it's a very simple technology. We have 12,000 kilometers of encroached land lost to desertification, running across about 16 states of northern Nigeria, that we can be able to apply into desert agriculture. So let us not use what is happening in Ukraine and China as a basis of planning what we should do. Let us be able to ask ourselves. Kirian, I wanted you to ask me, as a development person, to what extent have you participated in trying to now develop a program that can be able to change things for Nigeria? Before we came on, I and Kitet Kabir were talking about a program they call NATIP. And I was involved in NATIP. And I said to them when they were putting that NATIP program, as long as this is going to be a policy, it won't work. NATIP means National Agricultural Transportation Implementation Plan. I said the moment it becomes a plan, then it is no longer your business as government to be able to implement this plan. Okay? because you now use your policy to now turn this into a plan. And how do you turn this into a plan? Register a company you call the Nigerian Agri Corp and take all these programs that you people have run over the years, most of them now KIV'd, and put it under this corp. And then bring in the people who understand it to begin to now take it over. Kirian, I and you know about University of Nigeria and Nsukka maybe better than these other people sitting down here. The so-called popular Ehi Igbo that Igbos are celebrating as king of cows was a research, program out of University of Nigeria and Nsukka.
Why would you exclude me from those who would know?
I was coming to NIFO, sir.
No. Before you get to that, why would you exclude me from UNN?
Okay, sir, I'm sorry. Please forgive me, sir. Plus Kirian, plus my big brother Kingsley. And then we'll come to NIFO that Kingsley will know better than all of us. Today, you have what you call the super gene, a species of palm that begins to produce in 24 months. Super gene is imported from Malaysia. We do not have one research lab that is trying to now, back integrate or reproduce the super gene. Yet we had a NIFO. Today, NIFO is a shadow of its old self. We have the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria that, and I'm sure what I'm saying to you now, I wish you have the executive secretary come here to say it. They had gotten into a program, they have a crop, a variety of maize that grows 3 circles and does best in northern Nigeria. As I speak to you now, not one has been implemented. You had what you call the Presidential Food Support Program that had earmarked 327 sites in 327 local governments in Nigeria. Not one of those sites has grass, commercial grass growing in it. So the point I'm trying to make is that if you're saying what do we do because of the situation we find ourselves in, we are in a very bad situation. It is as bad as that one Indomie is now 200 naira, one pack is now...
Is it the Hungry Man size?
No, the Hungry Man size is about 300. The normal small pack is about 170, 200. Now, what that simply means is that even the person who pushes keke, who sells water, cannot be able to eat once a day. So don't think about where we are getting to. Think about where we are now. And when you have a statistic saying to you that 19 million of people are facing starvation, it simply means that 19 million Nigerians are going to die because there's no food. So I think for me, as a person, we should start calling out people. And the first, like I said to you, the second people we should be able to call out now is the Ministry of Water Resources. How come we have 300 dams in Nigeria? Not one is producing fish on a commercial basis. Kirian, answer me that. Yet we are importing annually 18 million metric tons of fish into Nigeria. And that is a staple. The third people we should call out is Ministry of Science and Technology. How come we have all these research institutes that are doing pilots? Now we have NABDA. And I can tell you this, under NABDA has 36 bioresources centers. There is a center in Abuja that is supposed to be doing seed multiplication for yam. How many farmers are those centers supporting? The center in Delta State, I don't think they've taken off there. Now, the third people we should be calling out will be the MBS. How come that there is no data existing today that the MBS has put on the table? We are talking about, yes, they talked about food inflation rising to 17%. Okay, food inflation is rising to 17%. Show us the statistics of how many farmers can go to the field. This is the president of Farmer Session in Nigeria sitting in a studio to say to you, I run a bakery. I can't even operate my bakery anymore. What Alhaji hasn't told us is that where he comes from, for that bakery alone, I'm not speaking for him, He can say I'm talking nonsense. There are at least 300 people depending directly on that bakery. So there are 300 jobs, that are lost, but those 300 dependents are still on him. They have lost their jobs, but he hasn't lost them. So are we now talking about the responsibilities being transferred? Check your phone by the time you leave this studio. There are people asking you for 2,000. Then no, people no longer ask for 10,000. And do you know what that means? When a man who shouldn't be asking you for 100,000 starts asking you for 10,000, you are having a man who is very close to suicide. That is the situation we have. So we're not also linking this to the issue of mental health. Now you wake up Monday, yesterday, on Sunday, I was driving to church, and I just stopped and I wondered how many people would be cursing themselves for not being able to go to church because they need to stay in the fuel lines to get fuel. Ditto on Friday. A lot of our Muslim brothers were on the queue when they are supposed to be doing what is most appealing to them, to go and worship their God. They can't leave because you need to get fuel. So Kingsley is not about what would happen. Kira, my brother, it is that we are in that very hard place right now as a country. And what needs to happen is that everybody who should be called out needs to be called out right now to say, let us now be able to now start having at least a 12-month, my brother has said, wheat grows for 3 months, maize for the same time. So let us get the people who should give us this plan, or let them dare some people to bring this plan.
Okay, Dr. Emeka Okengu, thank you very much for the points that you have raised. I'm sure the Ministry of Water Resources will be listening. We've had the Minister of Water Resources as our guest a number of times in the past. You said we have hundreds of dams around the country, which is true, but I suppose that it will be the business of agriculture, state, federal, or otherwise, to run a fisheries business, not that of the Ministry of Water Resources. If you have enough water in the dams, then the fish that you want to breed there will be the business of the fisheries department. They would know what kind of fingerlings to introduce. But more seriously, on the points that you have raised and the existential challenge that we face, we keep using Ukraine-Russian war as a basis for the conversation, because sometimes you need a rude awakening to say, look, what is it that we need to do? The flour miller from Kano, Alhaji Abubakar Alfa, has given us an indication of what is playing out with regard to flour, which, I mean, some people would just think that is wheat, they eat it, but you can see the many products that can come out of it. That's the value that we can get out of it. Architect Kabir Ibrahim, tell us, what do we need to do in the immediate term as a shock absorber to what is happening? Because assuming there is a ceasefire today in Ukraine, that would not mean the end of the disruption. Some 2.5 million Ukrainians have fled. Amongst them will be farmers, amongst them would be producers, amongst them will be those who are involved in logistics and so on and so forth. And that society is already upside down. And if the Russians decide to occupy and then run the place, then of course it means we are in for a much more longer challenge with regard to what the world would depend on from Russia and Ukraine, which means that the sanctions will also be in place. So for us in the short term, the kind of commodities that we're talking about, wheat in particular, maize, and of course we have the issues of fuel. But wheat and maize, how might the farmers respond to this, assuming they are incentivized, and what kind of incentives will be useful?
Let me fixate this conversation as all the things that are sprouting from the Russia-Ukraine palaver. Now, in Nigeria, we have had, we have seen, we have received, we have witnessed some success in rice production, maize production, cassava, and there are efforts in potato the orange fresh fleshed potato and all that. Now, what we need to do is to really harness these possibilities. But more importantly, those things that we have to still import in very large magnitude, border on wheat, for instance. Now, there is a program going on currently with the Wheat Association through the CBN. The CBN brought seeds, 13,000 metric tons of wheat seed from Mexico. And I believe this dry season farming is on. They are just beginning to harvest. Now, I want to take you back through memory lane. It's from 1988. ICOMO was leading the wheat program of IBB. I participated in providing accommodation for some people in the irrigation division of my state as an architect. Now, that drive was very well orchestrated all over. And somehow production began, but it stopped suddenly. But from that time on, the total production of Nigeria in wheat is like 70,000 metric tons. It was there until I think additional came. It was moved up to about 135,000 metric tons. Then it came down. During this administration, wheat has come down. But remember that we escorted Mr. President to Kebbi State to actually launch wheat and rice program. The wheat thing was not, was left without much attention. We are now at a point where we can boastfully say that we have rice. It may be costly, but it's available. Now, the CBN program of today, the official cultivated land area is 150,000 hectares. And on the average, the experts can say that I think one of these days you should call the people from Chad Research Institute who have the mandate for wheat. What is happening is that on the average, with the seed they got from Mexico now, you can have about 4.5 metric tons per hectare. Already, I think they have started seeing, you can put the average at 3 metric tons per hectare. So if they are doing 150,000 hectares, you can now see that it is 450,000 metric tons, far more than anything that we've had. Now, if you sustainably continue this in the next 5 years, because I think next year the CBN, they should have been invited here. They are saying they would do 250,000 hectares. If you go by the 3 tons, it will be 750,000 metric tons. In 5 years, we should be able to reach 1 million metric tons and thereabout. At some point, we might get self-sufficient. We have done that with rice. We are doing that with maize. We have done it with cassava. There was a time when they had the cassava program, we couldn't even do anything with cassava. I was then president of a poultry association. We asked the cassava people to give us cassava grit to be able to use it for the feed in poultry. Of course, they didn't. Most of the cassava went bad and people were discouraged from doing it. So what I am saying essentially is, as Dr. Emeka said, what we have now is about 85 million hectares of land that is cultivable. If we work and we walk our talk as a nation, we have ample opportunity to regionally promote all the competencies that are here. And if we do it without any bias, no corruption, you are not looking at people and all that, you give people opportunity and they incentivize farmers or investors to simply pursue it as a business, you will get there. The opportunities in AFTA, in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, will give you opportunity to work optimally and to make money as a farmer. If Africa is one common market And Nigeria had always been a giant in name. It can now be a giant in reality by harnessing all the possibilities. I am challenging you and everybody else to look inwards and invest properly in all these areas. Believe me, the sky will be the limit. You will not bother about what is happening in other countries. Okay, see what is the scenario in Ukraine and Russia now. Russia, there are so many sanctions against it. So even if it can cultivate and can harvest whatever it has, cannot come out. Now there is a war in Ukraine. People cannot go to their farms. Even what they have farmed during the last season cannot be harvested. So you already have that deficit. So many countries are looking for alternative places to import from. Nigeria should simply, recognize that there is a war, look for alternative places to import from, but work inside to improve this. This CBN thing that I told you is worth noting because they brought these seeds from Mexico, where the mandate, the global mandate for the production of wheat is. There were two places, Mexico and Syria. Because of the war in Syria, they moved it out to even Morocco and other countries. The mandate is there in those places because of the war in Syria. Now Mexico is free, no war. We were able to get 13,000 metric tons of seed. Our research institute is there. There are many varieties that are coming. Work on those. Produce this. Maize, you have mentioned it too. There are many varieties that can do very well here. Rice, there are many varieties that can do very well here. Cassava, potato, everything is possible in this country. So we should not just sit back and think that because this one is here, this one, the whole world will be in turmoil very soon. COVID-19 showed this. The weakness in the world. There are there are lines on food banks in even the first world.
So you see, many Nigerians will really wonder, why some of the, steps taken by CBN in the past, has not really yielded the dividends as expected in the agricultural sector. It's only that of rice, that the Nigerians are beginning to feel the impact. Now you talked about wheat. We're yet to, feel the impact of the intervention in wheat cultivation. We mentioned about cassava. I recall in the past dispensation, where we had cassava bread, it was so much promoted, that bakers are beginning to say, okay, look, if I have wheat bread, let me also have cassava bread and what have you. But that did not last. It quickly died away, because if that had been properly developed by now, we may not even have the issue of having bread, so expensive as it is at the moment, All right, gentlemen, we'll take a short break. When we return, I'd like Professor Gambo to speak on the issue of whether it is necessary for us to have a think tank, this time around, to see how we can have a new blueprint, that can assist us, sustain ourselves within this period that war is raging in Ukraine. You're on Good Morning Nigeria. We'll be back very shortly.
The ever-busy ancient city of Onitsha is a commercial hub with millions of commuters seamlessly linking other states daily for business, leisure, and other purposes. To upscale its road network, the construction of a 1.6-kilometer-long second Niger bridge, including a 10.3-kilometer highway furnished with other infrastructure, has been in motion by the federal government. This project will ease congestion on the existing 56-year-old Onitsha bridge and boost the economic capacity of the state as it easily connects to other parts of the country. The completion of the world-class second Niger Bridge Onitsha will be one of the many proud moments of the state, its people, Nigerians, and foreign investors. Onitsha, which hosts the largest market in Africa, is geared up to boast of an impressive road network. Once again, these moments are made alive by the federal government, and it is deserving of all the applause.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
The center is purposely established in order to provide these services that are examinations, medical examinations, and investigations that were not provided for in Kano as well as the entire Northwest region. It's equipped with modern technological equipment in terms of radiological services. We have MRI 1.5 Tesla. We have digital X-ray as well as 4D ultrasound equipment. The importance of the center cannot be overemphasized. Just within 1 year, the center attended to thousands and numerous patients as well as medical examinations. NKDC is established in order also to provide these healthcare facilities as a discounted price.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back. Still watching Good Morning Nigeria. Professor Gambo, do we need a kind of a think tank, to provide an urgent blueprint that can deal with the emerging developments in all aspects of our economy, especially now that prices of certain commodities are increasing?
Now we need it now more than any other time. If you have noticed, we are always lamenting. Lamentation is one thing with Nigerians. And we know we have the potentials, but if you do not put your potentials into real activity, the potentials are just there as potentials. We are now talking of just 2 countries in the world that are fighting, and then about 45 countries are dependent on them, including countries like the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, etc., and even in Africa, countries like Burkina Faso, DR Congo, etc. Don't let us not forget that it was the price of bread, just an increase in the price of bread, that gave rise to the Arab Spring in the Tunisian axis. Let us be very realistic. Today, if in Egypt, the price of bread is increased, definitely there are people who take to the streets. That is how much to show that people are so much reliant on the products of these 2 particular countries. We've been lamenting. The way forward now is for us to be very proactive, and then let us use this particular thing that is happening to fill up the lacuna. There is a big gap, there is a lacuna, and then we have alternatives. My Afghan president said we can actually go to other countries. The immediate other country we can think of is India. And by now, don't you think countries like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, they have not reached India? They've already done that. But what country has Nigeria reached out to, as we are talking now, for them to get wheat from, apart from what they are having before? These are the kind of questions we should ask ourselves. We just don't need a think tank, but then we need a kind of permanent standing committee whereby they should look at the potentialities that are existing in the country as far as wheat is concerned, and then how to harness those potentialities. We have the resources we know. We have the manpower we know. But then who is that single person that will bring the people that know, have the manpower, the water, and then the seeds and everything, so that we begin massive production? I foresee a situation whereby if there is a committee, the Lecture Research Institute in Maiduguri has the mandate for wheat in the country. So you can just give the marching orders and then give us wheat. You can even give a deadline. And then you can actually give a target with timeline and deliverables. This is how a country works. But then we'll be lamenting all through. It's not a matter of lamentation now. Your house cannot be on fire, and then you say, okay, let me quickly rush to my in-laws' house to tell them to come and park the properties of their daughter in my house. It doesn't happen that way. It does not. But as we are talking, this is exactly what we are all saying. We are playing with this thing. And then let us remember that the Boko Haram issue has actually gone down a bit. Kudos to the governor of Borno State. Now the roads to the international borders have all been opened. We should know that the famous trans-Saharan trade that was in existence, whereby countries like DR Congo, Sudan, Chad, etc., come to Maiduguri, the Muna garage in Maiduguri, and then they buy brown beans, they buy fish, they buy rice, they buy plastic things, and then that trade route has now been opened. And because they do not have wheat, they now have to come to look for the alternative in here. So there will be a kind of subtle competition between us and our neighbors, because the only way they can fall on is Nigeria. And then Nigeria, the gates are open. So and with the African Free Trade Zone, they can actually come in and then take whatever they want. Let me give you a practical example, Kirian. Last 2 weeks, the price of sorghum, 100 bag, sorghum, 100 bag in the Damaturu market was about 15,000. But then just 3 days ago, Sunday, it now rose to about 19,000. And then somebody was telling me that some people came with money before the market would close. All the sorghum in the Damaturu market has been mopped up completely by some people. So you now have people coming with money, following local markets, and then they are mopping up products, not just sorghum, but also other agricultural produce. Beans are being mopped up, maize is being mopped up, rice is being mopped up. Where are these people taking these commodities to? The government is supposed to be aware that this is happening, but nobody is giving the cue. The most important thing is for them to get the little change they are getting by selling the tickets for their IGR, etc. But then we have to be very proactive, and our leaders have to sit up on a very most serious note, really. We've seen war ourselves. The Biafran War was actually what made Nigeria to fall completely agriculturally. Prior to the Biafran War, Nigeria was number one, oil palm, beans, hide and skin, etc. But immediately after the Biafran War, we got it wrong. Until today, we are yet to wake up from the impact of that war. All the ages of 18 and 60 cannot leave Russia. And this is the age group that are supposed to be on the farm. They are all now to stay back in Russia, in Ukraine, and fight. And then another very interesting thing is when they said there should be a humanitarian corridor, Russia said the Ukrainians that are trying to flee from Ukraine should go back into Russia so that they also take arms and then fight their own countrymen again. So you can look at what is happening within that scenario. If we do not get it right now, as for agricultural productivity in Nigeria, definitely it's going to be a very, very big disaster. The universities of agriculture are on strike. All the other universities that have the faculty of agriculture are on strike. The research institutes are underfunded. So this is the right time. Let us have a think tank here, and I agree with you. And Kingsley, we should take this thing very serious, really. We pay lip service. Since this thing started, the National Assembly, nobody has come to say, where can we get alternative of wheat anywhere? Nobody has thought of that, really.
Yeah, Professor Abba Gabo, thank you very much. You've raised very important points. And the intelligence and security agencies should be concerned, for instance, about the mopping up of grains and other agricultural produce as to where they are taking them to. As I mentioned earlier on in the program, some countries have already imposed a ban on the export of some of their produce. Here in Nigeria, for instance, Aliko Dangote called for a moratorium on the export of maize. Algeria has imposed a ban on a wide variety of agricultural produce and other products from their country. And Egypt, of course, is also taking similar steps because it relies heavily on importation of wheat from Ukraine and Russia. And all of this war in Ukraine and Russia is compounded by the barrage of sanctions that have been imposed on Russia. So that even if Russia is producing, as Architect Kabir Ibrahim said, what is it that they are able to take out and what is it that others can access. I was just before we bring in again Abubakar Alpha, Professor Abba Gambo, I recall some years ago on Good Morning Nigeria when we were discussing, you did sketch the nutritional map of the country. You sketch the nutritional map of the country to say these are the locations where certain crops are produced, X, Y, Z. Now, as it were, we also should be on the war footing to mitigate the consequences of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. What is it that can be done in the immediate term or in the immediate term by state governors and also by the federal government? Can we immediately cultivate wheat? Can we immediately cultivate sorghum or other alternatives so that farmers will know that this is a new crop? At least planting hasn't started in the northern part of the country. It hasn't also started in the north central on account of the advisory by NIMET. Prof.
Kingsley, unfortunately, the food baskets that I mentioned some few years ago are the areas that are under intense insecurity now. I would have loved to say the Sokoto, Goronyo, Wurno axis coming down to Zamfara State, whereby you have the Bakalori Dam. These are excellent areas. The water is there, the people are there. But oh dear, unfortunately, you can't even access your farm. And then what they've cropped, they have to pay to go and harvest. So the issue of that area is gone. That means the whole of the Northwest is out of the bracket. Then when you come to Niger State, the Shiroro area, plenty of water, and then we can do plenty of agriculture, but that area is also under insecurity. And then in Kebbi State, most especially under Yawuri. Yawuri is the only place in Nigeria that does rice 3 times in a year. I stand to be quoted anywhere. The only place in Nigeria where rice is produced 3 times in a year. But as we are talking, Yawuri is under some sort of insecurity also. Then by the time you come to where the Zabarmari axis, the Jere Kadamari axis, that's in Borno State, Jigawa is relatively safer. So maybe Hadeja Jamare River Basin Authority in Jigawa State, and then in some parts of Kano State, then down to Bauchi, Yobe, and Borno. That's our immediate mark. And I want a situation whereby mandate should be given to these 5 states that I listed, that you should give us this amount of this particular crop. Of the 74 local government areas in Nigeria, every local government has a comparative advantage of a particular agricultural crop. Every local government. So we all know this. We should be able to give the matching orders, maybe a little money, and then you synthesize the farmers and give them 1 week, let everybody get set, and then we go to the farms to begin to produce what is available. Now is the dry season has set in, the weather is excellent enough, we can produce plenty of the potatoes we're talking about, we can produce maize, we can produce sorghum, we can produce cowpea. All this can be done in these 5 states that I've said, and then it will mitigate to a very great extent the things we're talking about. And even the wheat we're talking about, this is the wheat latitude area. All the areas I mentioned, wheat can be grown. So all we need to do is to get the fertilizer, get the wheat, give a matching order to Lecture Research Institute, which has the mandate for wheat. And before you know it, let them reach out to the farmers in the 5 states and let's start. Time is not on our side, really, because hunger is glaring all of us. And you're even talking about the hungry man size. In a short while, we'll not be talking about the hungry man size. We'll be talking about what exactly is there for anybody to put in the mouth.
Okay,
definitely.
Professor Gabo, thank you for all the information that you have released this morning on this program. Time is actually running out. Alhaji Abubakar Alpha, you heard from Professor Gambo that some persons are mopping up grains, including wheat and all of that. And you're a flour miller. I would like to know the implication of that, if it continues. And again, what steps should we take as a nation presently to see how we can mitigate whatever consequences that may arise? Just very briefly, if you can.
Okay, thank you once again. Just like Prof said, there is a lot of mop-up of food crop in the market as we speak. I'm afraid that with the historical record that our border officials have, we may not be able to implement what Alhaji Aliko has advised that the government should do. But that's actually the first step that should have been taken. Now, let me provide this insight. How many of us know that the Naira has been severely devalued against the CFA franc in the last 2 years? What that means is that our neighbors who are Francophone countries find it much cheaper to buy from us than the other way around. So with little money, they can walk in through our porous borders and buy up the food crops in our markets. And because most of our farming is done by subsistence farmers, they are at liberty to sell because they also need money to take care of their other basic needs. So if we do not check what is going out across the porous borders of northern Nigeria, and this happens on a daily basis, 24/7, definitely the issue of hunger will become better imagined than real. 2, what do we do in order to mitigate the effects? Like I've said before, and like most of the other speakers have said, 1, we need to go back and look inward. There was a time in this country that we were not this dependent on imported grain, especially the wheat. What were we living on? Are they extinct? Of course, no. They are available. Can they be cultivated? Sure. We've got the land, we've got the infrastructure that is required to cultivate them, even if not on the scale we want. But it will not be wise, even locally, for somebody to sit down in Cross River State and expect himself to be fed by a farmer in Yobe State. It doesn't work that way. We all have to look inward at what we have comparative advantage over, like Prof said, and then start from there. When you are done producing what you can, by the time you have enough, you begin to sell out. I would like to give India as an example. Not many people know that India today is the second largest producer of wheat in the world. But do you know how many percent of that wheat they are exporting? 1%. Why? They've got a 1.3 billion size population to feed. So wheat is a food security crop in India. They don't look at it as a cash crop. They look at it as a food crop. And this is what they are using to feed their people. And that's why if you look all across Africa, most of the millers are from that country. And where the miller is not from the country, if you look deep, the managers of the mills are from that country. They've built capacity over the years. So these are the things we need to do also. Look inward, intensify the production of crops that had always been with us from Adams, feed ourselves, and think of how we can develop on this. The idea of looking for countries where we can buy wheat is not very appealing because, like one of the presenters said, it is now a tug of war among countries. And some of the countries he listed will be more resourceful when it comes to paying because all the seller does is to continue jacking up the price. At some point, a number of countries will fall back. So we don't have to go that way. The earlier we realize that we have the potential, we have what it takes, and harness that, the better for us.
All right. Thank you very much, Alhaji Abubakar Alpha, and indeed the other gentlemen. We're out of time. We do hope we can return to this topic sometime on a positive note. One of the key issues, gentlemen, that you raised today is the level of strategic silos, grains reserves. What do we have in them? So in thinking about the short-term measures, we also have to worry about the medium to the long term. Assuming those silos had things in them, of course, this conversation would be different. It would be hard to replenish what is in those silos. On that note, we'd like to appreciate our 4 guests this morning from Kano Network Center over there. We're joined by Alhaji Abubakar Alfa, who is a flour miller and managing director of Market Bridge Limited in Kano. Thanks a lot, Alhaji Alfa. From Damaturu, that's the capital of Yobe State, we're joined by Professor Abba Gambo, who is Dean Faculty of Agriculture at Yobe State University. Professor Gambo, we appreciate your insight into this conversation. All right, that wave you are making, that's a hungry man wave. You know? And Dr. Meka Okengu, always a pleasure having you on Good Morning Nigeria, development economist and also a farmer. Thank you. Architect Kabir Ibrahim, president of Farmers Association of Nigeria. Never a dull moment with you. Thank you very much for being our guest.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go back out to the world of sports.
The American investment firm tasked with selling Chelsea expects a sale could happen by the end of the month after positive conversations with the UK government. The government will need to issue a new license for the club to be sold after Roman Abramovich was sanctioned last week. But after an agreement that the funds from the sale could go to a charitable organization or into a frozen account, there is confidence the process of getting a new license will be smooth. The government issued a special license to allow the club to continue operating after freezing Abramovich's assets, citing his links to Russian President Vladimir Putin. However, under the original terms of the license, the club cannot be sold. The deadline for bids has been extended to Friday, 18th March, with more than 20 credible parties interested. Meanwhile, Serbia will replace Russia in the Davis Cup and Australia will replace them in the Billie Jean King's Cup. Governing body, the International Tennis Federation, has confirmed Russia and Belarus have been suspended from international team competitions following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Serbia and Australia are the highest-ranked sides among the 2021 losing semi-finalists from each competition. Slovakia and Belgium are also through to the Billie Jean King Cup finals. The 3 sides will be joined by an as-yet unnamed host, last year's runners-up Switzerland, and the remaining 7 winners of April's qualifiers in November's finals.
All right, and that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We thank you for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow for a fresh edition of the Good Morning Show. My name is Kirin Omari. Have a great day.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo, thanking you for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your day.